This is Podcast Audio's exclusive international storytelling event. You're listening Mark Twain's The Wild Man Interviewed, featuring our guest storyteller, Scott Jameson. Scott Jameson is an American actor, producer, and voice artist, currently based in Dallas, Texas. He began acting in live theater production at the age of 5. Today, he primarily does on-camera work in films, television, and commercials. The Wild Man Interviewed is a satirical short story published in 1868. The narrator, being a reporter, decided to interview the wild man, the strange creature with long arms, ugly and grumpus, who lived in the woods like a wild beast, but never angry. He avoided men, but appeared suddenly and unexpectedly to women and children. Went armed with a club, but never molested any creature, except sheep and other animals, but never any human. The reporter felt that the creature's life story must be a sad one, a story of suffering, disappointment, and he aspired to discover the secret of wild man's life. So, what are we waiting for? Let's roll it now. The Wild Man Interviewed.
There's been so much talk about the mysterious wild man out there in the West for some time that I finally felt it was my duty to go out and interview him. There was something peculiarly and touchingly romantic about the creature and his strange actions, according to the newspaper reports. He was represented as being hairy, long-armed, and of great strength and stature, ugly and cumbrous, avoiding men but appearing suddenly and unexpectedly to women and children, going armed with a club but never molesting any creature except sheep or other prey, fond of eating and drinking and not particular about the quality, quantity, or character of the beverages and edibles, living in the woods like a wild beast but never angry, moaning and sometimes howling, but never uttering articulate sounds. Such was Old Shep, as the papers painted him. I felt that the story of his life must be a sad one, a story of suffering, disappointment, and exile, a story of man's inhumanity to man in some shape or other, and I longed to persuade the secret from him.
"Since you say you're a member of the press,"
said the wild man,
"I am willing to tell you all you wish to know. By and by you will comprehend why it is that I wish to unbosom myself to a newspaperman when I have so studiously avoided conversation with other people. I will now unfold my strange story. I was born with the world we live upon, almost. I am the son of Cain."
"What?" I exclaimed.
"I was present when the flood was announced,"
he said. "Which?" I questioned.
"I am the father of the wandering Jew,"
he stated. "Sir?" I asked. I moved out of the range of his club and went on taking notes, but keeping a wary eye on him all the while. He smiled a melancholy smile and resumed.
"When I glance back over the dreary waste of ages, I see many a glimmering and mark that is familiar to my memory. Oh, the leagues I have traveled, the things I have seen, the events I have helped to emphasize. I was at the assassination of Caesar. I marched upon Mecca with Muhammad. I was in the Crusades and stood with Godfrey when he planted the banner of the cross on the embattlements of Jerusalem.
One moment, please. Have you given these items to any other journal? Can I?
Silence. I was in the piñata's shrouds with Columbus when America burst upon his vision. I saw Charles I beheaded. I was in London when the gunpowder plot was discovered. I was present at the trial of Warren Hastings. I was on American soil when the Battle of Lexington was fought, when the Declaration was promulgated, when Cornwallis surrendered, when Washington died. I entered Paris with Napoleon after Elba. I was present when you mounted your guns and manned your fleets for the War of 1812, when the South fired upon Sumter, when Richmond fell, when the president's life was taken. In all the ages, I have helped to celebrate the triumphs of genius, the achievements of arms, the havoc of storm, fire, pestilence, famine.
Your career has been a stirring one. May I ask how you came to locate in these dull Kansas woods when you have been so accustomed to excitement during what I term so protracted a period, not to put too fine a point on it?
Listen. Once I was the honored servitor of the noble and illustrious. Here he heaved a sigh and passed his hairy hands across his eyes. But in those degenerate days, I am become the slave of quack doctors and newspapers. I am driven from pillar to post and hurried up and down, sometimes with stencil plate and paste brush to defile the fences with cabalistic legions, and sometimes in grotesque and extravagant character at the behest of some driving journal. I attended to that ocean bank robbery some weeks ago, and I was hardly rested from finishing up the powwow about the completion of the Pacific Railroad. Immediately, I was spirited off to do an atrocious murder for the benefit of the New York papers. Next, to attend the wedding of a patriarchal millionaire. Next, to raise a hurrah about the great boat race. And then, just when I had begun to hope that my old bones would have a rest, I am bundled off to this howling wilderness to strip and gibber and be ugly and hairy and put down fences and waylay sheep and waltz around with a club and play wild man generally. And all to gratify the whim of a bedlam of crazy newspaper scribblers. From one end of the continent to another, I am described as a gorilla, with a sort of human seeming about me. And all to gratify this crow-driving scum of the earth.
Poor old carpetbagger.
I exclaimed.
I have been served infamously. Often in modern and semi-modern times. I have been compelled by base men to create fraudulent history and to perpetuate all sorts of humbugs. I wrote those crazy Junius letters. I moped in a French dungeon for 15 years and wore a ridiculous iron mask. I poked around your northern forests among your vagabond Indians, a solemn French idiot, personifying the ghost of a dead dolphin, that the gaping world might wonder if we had a bourbon among us. I have played Sea Serpent off Nahant and Woolly Horse in What Is It for the museums. I have interviewed politicians for the Sun, worked up all manner of miracles for the Herald, ciphered up election returns for the World, and thundered political economy through the Tribune. I have done all the extravagant things that the wildest invention could contrive, and done them well. And this is my reward. Playing wild man in Kansas without a shirt. Mysterious being, a light, dawns vaguely upon me. It grows apace.
What is your name?
Sensation, hence horrible shape. Oh, piteous fate. My destiny hounds me once more. I am called. I go. Alas, is there no rest for me?
In a moment, the wild man's features seemed to soften and refine, and his form to assume a more human grace and symmetry. His club changed to a spade, and he shouldered it and started away sighing profoundly and shedding tears. Whither, poor shade?
To dig up the Byron family.
Such was the response that floated back upon the wind as the sad spirit shook its ringlets to the breeze, flourished its shovel aloft, and disappeared beyond the brow of the hill, all of which is in strict accordance with the facts.
Well, this was Mark Twain's The Wild Man Interviewed, featuring our guest storyteller, Scott Jameson. Scott is working on 2 new feature films that are currently in production. The first, titled The Talent Process, will be released during 2022 in selected theaters across the US and on streaming platforms. It introduces his character Circuit, who then becomes the main character in the sequel Circuit, which will release in 2023. To find out more about Scott, check out his IMDb, www.imdb.me/Scott Jameson, and follow him on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/scott.jameson.actor.
Hey everyone, this is Ajay Tambe, the producer host of Criterios.in podcast. If you like this episode, if you like this story, if you like this show, please make sure you go and subscribe to our podcast, whichever platform you're listening on, Spotify, Google, Apple, Ghana, any platforms. Make sure you go and subscribe and follow to our show and connect with us on Instagram @podcastaudios. We are now in world's top 1% most popular podcasts. So make sure you go and check out our other series and episodes.